afternoon, there have been some extraordinary scenes at Twickenham today as the Rugby Premiership final has been invaded, or the pitch rather has been invaded, by protesters for, yes, just stop oil. Yesterday they were at the Chelsea Flower Show chucking orange powder over plants, which seems strange for a green movement. Today they were invading the pitch. They stopped play and they were throwing around some of this orange powder or paint or something. So probably the biggest day of some of these players' careers, and obviously a big day out for all the people who were there. And again, Just Stop Oil have been trying to ruin it. So to explain why, we're going to speak now to Kush Naker, who is a spokesperson for Just Stop Oil. Hi, Kush.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Okay. Kush, don't you realise you're just losing support by the bucket load with these silly, ill-advised protests?
So our tactics are not to gain support from the general public. Our tactics are to put pressure on the government to take action. And that is what we are doing. And that is what we will continue to do until they say that they are not going to issue any new oil and gas licences.
But you're not putting pressure on the government, because the government listens to what the people of this country want because they're interested in their votes.
Yes,
if you're alienating and turning off the people of this country, you're alienating and turning off the government.
So we don't need people to support our tactics. We need people to support our demand, which is for no new oil and gas. And actually, the vast majority of the British public do support that, as does every major political party, apart from the Conservative Party. And that
why are you choosing this type of action?
When we started the campaign, that was not the case. Actually, now every political party, apart from the Conservatives, are coming out and saying that.
Kush, couldn't you be targeting? Do you really think that's because you've been running onto rugby pitches and throwing orange powder over plants?
Well, it gets us in the focus of the media, and I wish that we didn't have to take disruptive action. I wish that the government simply recognised that it was their responsibility to take action on the climate crisis to protect the British public. But instead of actually doing their job of protecting the British public, they are going ahead with these new oil and gas licences, which we know are causing floods, fires, famines, and drought.
You've been at this for a while then, and they're not bending to this pressure. So why do you think that more of the same is going to work?
Well, I don't know what is going to work. I don't think anybody knows what is going to work. And so that's why we need to try and use every tactic that is available, as long as it is non-violent. And nobody was hurt in today's protest. It was a completely peaceful, non-violent protest. Yes, it disrupted the rugby match for about 5 minutes. But do you not think that that's worthwhile when there are hundreds of millions of people who are starving as a result of the climate crisis?
I think what would be worthwhile is rethinking your strategy along the lines of slightly more creative, like Extinction Rebellion have done. OK, they started off like you, using very disruptive tactics. And they've obviously taken a different path because they've realised they don't want to alienate people anymore. It's not getting them anywhere.
Well, I think we need Extinction Rebellion, and we need Just Stop Oil, and we need groups like Fossil Free London, who took action at the Shell AGM as well earlier this week, directly against the board of Shell. So we need to target the politicians, we need to target the fossil fuel industry, and we need a diversity of tactics, because if we knew exactly what was going to work, then we would just go ahead and do it. But we don't, because nothing that we've tried so far has worked. And that's why I think we need to persist with as many new different types of tactics as we can do to get this onto the agenda of our politicians and get them to listen. And the reason that things like sporting events are targeted is because they are watched by millions of people. And millions of ordinary people in this country, unfortunately, do not seem to understand the scale of the climate crisis, which is why they themselves are not putting that pressure on the government.
It's doing your cause a disservice. Look, I've got a text here from Chris in Newbury. He says, Just Stop Oil's tactics are laughable and doing nothing. I'm a big advocate for the environment, but these jokers are doing more harm for this cause than good. We don't end up talking about climate change. We end up talking about these plonkers.
So I'd say to that, first of all, I don't think anyone sees the actions that we take and suddenly decides that actually now I don't care about climate change and I wish that there was more pollution. So I don't think it turns people off once they actually know about what the climate crisis means. For those who say, yeah, we don't want to talk about the tactics, we want to talk about the issue, I 100% agree. So I would much rather, on an interview like this, actually talk to you about what climate change means.
Well, of course we're not going to, because your colleagues have been invading a pitch at the rugby. So the tactics is what's got our attention, admittedly. But as Chris from Newbury says, we're talking about how balmy it is and how it's not turning the dial of public opinion one jot. But Kush, I'm so sorry. Thank you very much, Kush. Kush, very game of you to come on, and thank you for putting your case. I do understand your frustrations. I just don't think you're going about it the right way. I'm going to go now to some callers on Boris Johnson and the WhatsApps. Anne in Boston, Lincoln.